بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. I hope you respected sisters are all keeping well. First of all, welcome to this class, and really it's alhamdulillah, it's an honor to have this opportunity to inshallah go through some of the ahkam with you. I would highly recommend that you guys try to keep your camera on. I know you may be somehow, concerned, but inshallah, if you're comfortable, if you're okay, it would be great if it could be a kind of interactive more with you using the camera and the mic and participating in this class. If anybody's not ready today, then inshallah from next week maybe you can try to be ready in that regard. And inshallah we all keep our cameras on. Okay, so at any point also, like please do participate, do ask questions. I will try to ask you guys questions and engage you, but just inshallah, feel free to at any point in time take up the mic, type something in the chat, inshallah. Everybody's with me right now, everybody's paying attention, following, inshallah. Give
Yes.
me a awesome. Since nobody's turning their camera on today, I'll need extra participation in terms of, I don't know, thumbs up or typing or taking up the mic. So just I know that inshallah everybody's there. Inshallah. The plan is, sisters, to go through as much as we can from this book. In fact, let me just go first of all to the next slide, and then I have a slide specifically about the textbook that we're following. So, yeah, inshallah, what we want to do today, as you can see on this overview slide in front of you, is we want to first of all introduce the textbook that we will be following a little bit. I'll talk about the author, talk about some of the benefits, the positive aspects of this textbook. And then, as our introductory session today, we just want to get familiar with what is ahkam, what is the subject of ahkam or fiqh, how much does ahkam discuss, what are the different kind of areas that fall under this subject of ahkam. And then finally, the bulk of today's session, inshallah, will be about different terminologies. Terminology that, to kind of start off a discussion of ahkam, this will be terminology we need to know. Either it's useful to know or it's going to be necessary to know. So, inshallah, that's what we'll talk about for today. Make sense? Inshallah. Okay, so a little bit about our textbook. Thank you, Sister Maryam, for the thumbs up. Again, I need as much participation as possible because nobody's got their camera on today. But again, my recommendation, my not just recommendation, I really, really would encourage you sisters to try to keep your cameras on. If not from this week, then from next week. Okay, wear hijab properly and keep the camera on. Inshallah, it will make it much more beneficial that if I can see you and you can see me both, inshallah. Okay, let me start off with before we come to a discussion about the textbook, let me just, start off with a question. Engage you guys a little bit, get you thinking as we start off this class. Let's say you're traveling, you're in the plane, you're flying somewhere eastward. Okay, eastward meaning you're going against the sun. The sun is coming to the west and you're going to the east. Time is going quickly. It's a night flight. You're going to the UK, you're going to Pakistan. I don't know where you're going. And there's just like a little bit of time where you have to pray Fajr on the plane. Okay, you're keeping an eye out, you're looking out the window. Maybe you used some app to figure out when exactly will be the Fajr time. Although that's a discussion of its own that can we rely on that app? But that's not my question. My question is, let's say you know when is the Fajr time, but now on the plane, what do you do? How do you pray your Fajr prayers on the plane? What if they're serving food? What if there's not much space? What if you're on Flair or some, really bad North American airline which doesn't have much space? What do you do first of all? And then like let's say you didn't know what your responsibility was. How would you go about practically I'm asking you guys, what would you do? Who would you ask? How would you figure out what your responsibility is? Bismillah. I want to hear from some of you sisters. What do you think? Nobody wants to be brave enough to answer. How about I call on some sisters then if nobody wants to volunteer to answer. Sister Hannah, are you with us? What do you think, Sister Hannah?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I'm here.
Alaikum salam.
Um, I think I'm not too sure exactly like what you're supposed to do, but I think like before your flight, you try and make sure you try and figure out the timings beforehand, and then if you're able to pray at the back, like you can request them to pray standing up, and if they're completely against it, then I believe that you are allowed to pray at your seat, like if you can face the Qibla and standing up. If not, then I think sitting down is also permissible.
Hmm. Hmm. So basically, you need to try to pray standing and facing the Qibla if possible, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, try and pray standing, like try your best to ask, and if you're able to, then I think you're supposed to pray standing up. But if
Mm-hmm.
not, then like as a last resort, you still pray, but in your seat.
Okay, okay. Let me throw in another question here. Somebody else I'll call on if nobody wants to volunteer. Let's say, like Sister Hannah just said, you pray sitting down because you don't have a choice, or you pray not facing the Qibla because you don't have a choice. Now, what if you land and there's still time left before the qada? Okay, so let's say it's not this Fajr example. Let's say it's Dhuhr, Asr, and you are arriving at like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Do you need to redo your prayers? What do you guys think? I see, by the way, Sister Maryam has put something on the chat. First of all, try to stand despite placing people in inconvenience. And then Sister Maryam has responded, thank you, Sister Maryam, that yes, you do need to pray again. Okay, another question that I have, like, how would you guys go about figuring this out? Who would you ask? Where would you check? Sister Iman, Manik, tell me, if you had these kind of questions, what would you do?
Um, my understanding there are resources. I like to use Maulana Rizvi's website because it has a whole section on travel rulings.
Right.
And I also like using he has a link to some website that will help you figure out what time namaz is and also the qibla at every hour. So that's what I use. To be honest, I don't generally try to stand and
Mm-hmm.
pray my namaz because it's kind of a lot of times it's rather impossible. So
Mm.
I would pray at my seat. But I mean, if we did not have Maulana Rizvi's website, we also have Ayatollah Sistani's website where you would probably be able to find something. And I mean, we also have a lot of lovely scholars who you have access to that you can just ask a quick question to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. You try to do your research first of all. Something like this may not be that easy to find. Shia chat, Sister Zareen. Okay. But Shia chat wouldn't be like unless unless it gives you certainty, unless it's like a chat by some sheikh who you really trust, you can't just follow what Shia chat says normally, right? But overall, like Sister Iman said, we could try to use resources that give us certainty. Obviously, the website of our marja would be a very, very trustworthy resource that we have. The problem is, oftentimes such questions may be a little bit difficult to find. You may find a Q&A and then, okay, mashallah, you're sorted. Otherwise, sometimes it may take a while of reading the Islamic laws book and you might still not be sure. So despite that being really beneficial and really important, that we should somehow be familiar with the Islamic laws book of our marja, at the end of the day, I think it's still necessary to be in touch with an alim and have a scholar who can answer your questions. At times, it's not going to be things that we can easily figure out from the books. And we need an expert to kind of give us the specific answer to our scenario. In this situation, I think though, as you guys know, you do, as Sister I don't know, Hannah, Sister Maryam told us, you do need to try to pray with all the conditions. So standing is a condition of prayer. Facing the Qibla is a condition of prayer. If you are able to, you must do that. And very often in the plane, they are accommodating. They will have like a room where, if you tell them you need to pray, they'll give you permission to stand and pray. And if you pray with all the conditions, then you don't need to pray again. Even if you land and there's still time before the qada, you met all the conditions. You were facing Qibla, you were praying standing up, your prayer is okay. If, however, you don't have a choice, then you pray without the conditions. As Sister Hannah said, you pray sitting down, you pray without facing the Qibla. In that situation, if you are able to pray again when you land, it's not yet qada, you do need to repeat your prayer. Anyways, this was just a kind of question to, keep in mind that ahkam sometimes are not that clear. We do need to be in touch with teachers, with ulama. And Sister Zareen's point about Shia Chat is also a good reminder that we can't just follow, any website or anything that somebody, it should be a source that gives us confidence, which at times, like Shia Chat, I don't think it would always give us that kind of confidence. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Everybody's with me, inshallah. Yes, Sister Sana, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I just had a question.
Yes,
Um,
good.
if you're sitting down and you're praying on the plane, do you still have to do takbirat al-ihram while standing up?
I don't think so. No, I haven't seen something like that. It's like if you are able to stand up, you should be praying standing up. But if you're not praying standing up, then you're praying sitting down, and then you don't need to stand for the takbiratul ihram. I
Okay.
haven't heard anything like that. Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so a little bit about the textbook that we're following. Uh, one of the nice things about it, this is a picture of it, by the way. It's a Farsi textbook called Dars Namaya Fiqh. Some of you sisters here may know Farsi. I'm happy to share the PDF with you. Just email me. My email address, you should have received an email from me, by the way. My email address is mehdi@academyofislam.com, Mahdi. So if anybody wants the PDF of the textbook in Farsi, I'm happy to give it to you. It's a really nice textbook. It's something, this is a picture of the author, Ayatollah or, Sheikh Fallah Zadeh. He works in the office of Ayatollah Khamenei. He's somebody who's really spent a lot of his life teaching and publishing books and propagating books to do with ahkam, really cool things at times. Like, for example, washing machines. He has like a whole booklet about washing machines and do they make how does najasat become tahir if you're using a washing machine? Is it core water and one cycle, two cycle, random things like that to do with making ahkam practical in people's lives. And so there are a series of kind of textbooks that he has made for teaching ahkam. This is one of the most famous ones. It is a book that has gone through many, many iterations. It's been taught for decades, probably if not years. I think decades is not an exaggeration. And it used to be called Amuzash Fiqh, but for some reason they changed the name now to Dars Namaya Fiqh. Okay, some of the positive aspects of this book that I've put here on the slide is that it's easier to understand than, a traditional book of ahkam. Let me show you a traditional book of ahkam. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is Ayatollah Sistani's Minhajus Salihin. Okay. Eh, These kind of old books of ahkam, or traditional books, are very difficult to understand. They're more intended for Hausa students who are studying fiqh. A lot of it is very, very theoretical. Even when it's not theoretical, it's like mas'ala. Even the English book, Islamic laws, it's not an easy book to read. It's like mas'ala number one, issue number two, number three, number four, just a whole bunch of text, complicated scenarios buried in like very long text that's hard to understand. This book, on the other hand, is a textbook for students, for schools. It's got tables, charts, questions. It's divided into different lessons. Over 84 lessons, it goes through a complete course in ahkam. almost complete. Like vast majority of the discussions of ahkam are there. But just for your information, about half the book is tahara and namaz. So up until lesson number 37 is just talking about tahara and salat. So something to keep in mind, like if we right now for this academy class, we have 12 classes that we have scheduled. We're just going to get through tahara. We have two lessons on taqleed and then tahara in detail, inshallah. I that too, I cut out two lessons from this textbook. So generally it would have taken even longer than that to go through all of Tahara. Anyways, point is it's a really cool book. It's tried to make ahkam a little bit easier to understand, more accessible. It's something that has been developed over many editions. They've improved it. And a last thing that it has is it tries to bring the opinion of many different maraja'. So it's in accordance with Imam Khomeini's laws, but whenever there's a difference of opinion, there's like a symbol, and you can go to the end of the book and it has the opinion of like more than 10, I don't know, maybe 15 different maraja'. Of course, at times it may be not 100% perfect, they may be missing some things, but generally they've tried to do this where they give you an idea of how different maraja' have different opinions on these matters. So all of these points together make it a really nice book to use for studying ahkam. Do we have an English translation? I am going to be translating it as we go week by week. I will try to email you the lesson that we are doing before the start of the lesson. So I did email you guys less than an hour ago, about 1 hour ago, with the first lesson. So generally, whatever I'm teaching, I may modify it a little bit, but I'm hoping to stick uh, you know, pretty much exactly to what this textbook is doing, inshallah. Okay, nowadays with AI, it's very easy to translate, so I'm just kind of translating it and double checking it, editing it, changing it maybe a little bit, and then giving it to you guys. Any questions? Any comments? Make sense? MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Okay. The next thing that we want to discuss, inshallah, is the idea of what is the scope of ahkam? I wanted to prepare some kind of poll online, okay, that you sisters could fill out. I did actually prepare it, so let me just try this out. I'm not sure if it will work, but let's try it. I made a word cloud. Okay, I want you guys to fill out this Mentimeter. If you're not familiar, it should be like really, really easy and straightforward to do this on your phone, on your device. Just go to menti.com and put in this code and start, brainstorming, pouring out ideas of what kind of topics are included in the Sharia. I want to see what comes to your mind when you guys think of Sharia and Islamic law. So Bismillah, it should be live, it should be working. Why don't you guys start putting in some thoughts over here? I hope it's working. Did anybody try to put something yet? I'll give you guys a minute. Hopefully we start seeing some results here. Aha, awesome, awesome. Okay, so see, keep going, guys. But already we see salat, hijab, food, tahara. Okay, great. Akhlaq, interesting. We'll talk about that. Najasat, hijab, two times. Food, salat. Anything else, guys, beyond these normal topics that come to mind? Khums, okay? Zakat, haram, wajib, roza, business. MashaAllah to the person who wrote that. Business. Okay, that is definitely one thing I wanted to see. What else comes to mind? What about family life? What about government? Do we not have Sharia laws about things to do with our family? Music? Okay. Overwhelming. I don't know what you meant by that, but okay. Relationships. Yeah. Marriage, I guess. Yeah. MashaAllah, marriage. Somebody wrote marriage. Ties with family. Awesome. Justice. Taqleed. Good, 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 good. Okay. So inshallah, thank you, sisters. That was really good. Uh, inshallah, that itself is a bit of a reminder that the subjects in the Sharia are very vast. Now, the word Sharia, for the person who wrote Akhlaq, she's kind of right. That the word Sharia is used apparently in an Islamic context. When I was preparing for this class, I did a quick search and I was apparently informed that Sharia can be used even for Akhlaq and Aqaid, as like Sharia can be used for anything that Islam has given us as our path in life. That path that we need to go towards. Okay, Sharia in Arabic literally means a path to a body of water, but it's used for any kind of advice that Islam has given us. However, it's more commonly used for ahkam or fiqh. How is that different from akhlaq and aqaid? Basically, ahkam deals with our actions that we have to do. Akhlaq is more about the characteristics, jealousy, pride, bravery. Aqaid is about the beliefs. What do we believe in? But when it comes to our actions, most of what you guys wrote, things like prayer, hijab, food, marriage, I don't know, khums, zakat, these are all actions that we need to carry out with our body parts. And that is what the subject of ahkam or fiqh is dealing with. And normally when we use the word sharia, we're using it in that sense. Sharia is that path that Islam has given us in terms of the laws that we have to follow. Okay? So one discussion I want to have right now is the scope of the Sharia. 1 second, I'm just going to share the same slides again. So one really important point to keep in mind as Muslims, we believe that Islam has an opinion about everything we could possibly do. That's a big statement. Okay, whatever, that's the idea behind ijtihad, behind the subject of fiqh, that it's like a machine where you give it an input and it will give you an output. The input is any scenario, any action, anything that you could do in life. The subject of fiqh should tell you that that action is one of five things. Either it's wajib or mustahab or mubah, permissible, or makruh or haram. There's nothing else. Everything in our life has to fall under one of these five categories. This is what Islam teaches us. Look at this hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, "Ma min shay'in illa wa fihi kitabun aw sunnah." That there is nothing except that the Quran or the Sunnah has given us guidance about that. Even if it's a general, like Islam has told us, okay, certain things are haram, everything else is permissible. So even if it's that general rule that a lot of things will be permissible, it still falls under that general rule that the Quran, the Hadith, the Islamic teachings have given us. Okay, so one of the things to know out of interest for respected sisters is that there are about 50 or so traditional chapters that books of fiqh would discuss. Some of them are very obvious, what you guys wrote about tahara and prayer and khums. Some of them maybe we're less familiar with. Things like business transactions. There's a lot of details in the Sharia about rules of different kinds of transactions. The default one is buying and selling, but then there are many other ones as well. A lot of the initial rules of financial transactions are discussed in buying and selling, and then the other categories of transactions will somehow refer back to those discussions. But rental agreements or um, I don't know, like taking a loan or giving a guarantee to somebody or different ways of going into business together. All of these are different traditional subjects of fiqh. Then there are things to do with family life, marriage, divorce, different types of divorce. There are things to do with the marital responsibility. The chapter on marriage is a huge chapter. It talks about marital obligations. It talks about mahramiyah, who is mahram. It talks about, I don't know, different types of marriage. Then there's discussions about government rules as well. Okay, so I've put here in the slide a few different pictures of books. Some of these discussions might not be in every book. So, for example, Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect him, he doesn't discuss some of these government ahkam because maybe it's not that applicable. The way he was thinking is that, his muqallideen are not people who are running an Islamic government. So he didn't need to maybe clarify these ahkam for them. But other books of fiqh, for example, there's another book here called Tahrirul Wasila of Imam Khomeini, or a very old, very important Shia book on ahkam called Shara'i'ul Islam. This is going back like almost 1,000 years ago. Less than 1,000, maybe like 800 years ago or so. Anyways, those books, Tahrirul Wasila, Shara'i'ul Islam, they have those ahkam about government and like punishments for drinking alcohol and committing stealing or committing different kinds of crimes, ahkam to do with witnessing in court, who's a judge, and what are the kind of Islamic guidelines of how the judge should judge in a dispute. If a judge needs to call a witness, again, ahkam about being a witness. All of these different types of ahkam are part of the Sharia. So one thing to keep in mind is this really kind of important perspective that the Sharia, the laws of Islam encompass everything in our life. Okay, and so that's a really kind of important outlook to have. We shouldn't fall into this trap that, oh, religion is, one part of my life and then the rest of my life is regardless of religion. It's just like, majority of my life has nothing to do with religion. Oh, but some things. No, Allah should, Islam should encompass all of our life. Make sense, guys? Any questions? Any comments? You guys need to give me some kind of feedback here so I know you're with me because I can't see you. Okay, alhamdulillah. Some people are giving me a thumbs up. Jazakumullah khair. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about today, inshallah, we have about half an hour left, is I want to go through a lot of terminology now. This will take a while. We'll talk about different terms. Maybe at times I'll share some kind of ahadith or points to do with the terms. There's about 9 or 10 different terms we want to go through. Okay? Maybe I can call on you guys to help me out at times. I'll ask you some questions. First of all, one of the terms we want to start with is fiqh. I already kind of spoke a little bit about fiqh. Fiqh is one of three important areas of Islamic teachings. One aspect of Islamic teachings is to do with our beliefs. One aspect is to do with the characteristics of our heart. Belief is aqa'id, our heart is akhlaq. And the third subject is fiqh. Fiqh is to do with our actions that we have to perform. Sometimes people differentiate ahkam from fiqh, and they might use the word ahkam to talk about the actual laws that you have to follow, whereas fiqh is the subject of deriving these laws, going to the Quran, going to the hadith, extracting these laws from the original sources. One interesting point, sisters, for you guys to know is that the majority of the efforts of Islamic scholars, the majority of the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, are to do with the subject of fiqh. Anybody want to take a guess why that might be the case? Is it the case that fiqh is more important than aqaid, more important than akhlaq? Why is it the case that majority of the efforts of scholars and ahadith of the imams are dealing with fiqh. Any thoughts? Any guesses why that might be the case? Like I'll give you an example. Like a majority from our four early collections of hadith, we have four really important early collections. They're called the Kutub al-Arba'a. Three of these four are just about ahadith about fiqh. And even the fourth one, Al-Kafi, more than 50% of it, maybe like 60, 70% of it is to do with fiqh. Sister Hana, what do you think?
I think it's because fiqh is like the things that we must like do, for example, our wajib and haram, whereas akhlaq is more like recommendations and ways of life, which are very highly recommended to do, but fiqh is what should guide our all our actions.
Yeah, I think you're definitely getting to the right answer. Sister Maryam Al-Musawi has written, because we need a lot of practical guidance. Sister Fatima says maybe because a lot of akhlaq stuff is ingrained in human nature, but rulings we need more guidance for. Sister Zareen Fatima implementing the Islamic laws. All of you guys, I think you're kind of getting to the right thing, that what we need more guidance on, what is more important in the sense that, okay, not important unconditionally, but the idea that like what people are interested in knowing. I mean, that's the best way to put it. Sister Hannah, I don't know if that's exactly what you're going for. So what I would say is this, that people in a Muslim community, Muslim society, the questions people have, okay, like you guys gave the example of Mulana Rizvi, mashallah, may Allah reward him. He's done so much for ahkam. If you were to ask him, I wouldn't be surprised a lot of the questions he gets are ahkam questions. Okay, in a religious community, like the people who come to Mulana Rizvi, who want to talk to him, a lot of times, what are they worried about? They're worried about ahkam. In addition to that, remember that there were a lot of like the imams of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, were teaching Islam in a context where there were a lot of other Muslims who were incorrectly deriving the laws. There were Sunnis basically, Abu Hanifa and I don't know, Malik bin Anas and these other people who had come up with incorrect ways of deriving the laws. And so the Imams needed to respond to that and correct that and show people this is the way that you derive the laws. This is the truth about how to pray. You don't pray with your hands folded, you pray with your hands down. You don't wash your feet in wudu, you wipe your feet in wudu. Okay, so there was a lot of discussions. Muslims had a lot of questions. And the other thing, guys, is that the ahkam are very, very complicated. Okay, this is something that even just if you stick with me and we go through the ahkam together, you'll realize that you already know, I'm sure, that at times the ahkam are pretty tricky and pretty complex. Okay, there are like a lot of conditions to the validity of an action. There's a lot of different things to keep in mind. And so because of that, the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and Shia scholars dedicated their lives. Some of these scholars were geniuses, people with so much ability, so much piety, blessed individuals. They dedicated their lives to the subject of fiqh, a lot of them. Now, just kind of between parentheses, something for you guys to keep in mind. What I just said, does that apply today in Canada, today in America? Do you guys think that fiqh is the primary concern today of young people in Canada? What do you think? As you guys are, going through life, going through university, being challenged about religion, belief in God, do you still think that, the details of how to deal with shakiyat of salat, doubt in prayer, which is again a tricky discussion. If we come to it, you'll see. Do you think that is the primary responsibility we have? The most important responsibility we have? No, Sister Fatima Hasnain categorically no. I would agree with her. Ahsant. Ahsanti. Um, okay, it's really important. Following the Sharia is how we obey Allah, but before figuring out the laws, we need to have solidified our belief in Islam. We need to have proven for ourselves that, the Quran is the word of Allah, that we have to obey Allah by following the Ahlul Bayt. If we have doubt about that, then, you know, what's the point in discussing what Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei are saying about music? We don't even haven't even solidified our beliefs. So there is a good kind of argument to make, a very important kind of thing to clarify that nowadays, in a society where religion is being challenged, where we are living with people who don't subscribe to Islamic values, before we even study ahkam, we need to make sure we've studied aqaid. Nonetheless, ahkam is still really important. So, inshallah, you guys do stick with this class and we are hopefully able to clarify a lot of the ahkam. That was something about fiqh. Very quickly, ijtihad. Can somebody help me out? What does ijtihad mean? Sister Ish'al? Ish'al, merchant? What does ijtihad mean? Maybe Sister Ish'al is busy. How about Sister Insia Batul? What does ijtihad mean? You guys can type in the chat if you're yeah, go ahead. Are you gonna say something? Did somebody unmute? What is the word? Anybody else? Help us out here. What does the word ijtihad mean? I just want to clarify these terminologies as our opening part of our opening session. What is the word ijtihad? Who is a mujtahid? Nobody? Sister, trying to understand a ruling ourselves. So, Sister Fatima Hasnain, then who is a mujtahid?
Like a representative and like a leader that we follow at because like our imam is in hiding, so we have a representative who can help us derive the laws. So like we
Actually,
have a guide.
Sister Hana, I want to differentiate a marja from a mujtahid. And so what you've just said, somebody that we can follow is the marja. So before that, let's come to mujtahid. Mujtahid is synonymous with faqih. So we want to clarify first of all, who is a faqih or a mujtahid? You want to try again, Sister Hana? So there are some responses in the chat. Let me just read these out. Someone who has the knowledge to understand the rulings, someone who has done the research and study to know the rulings. Yeah, basically, you're right. Somebody who has struggled to derive the law. So initially, Sister Hana, the mujtahid, the faqih, is somebody who uh, is themselves, they have their own opinion. They are qualified to extract the rulings. Something to keep in mind, sisters, is that this is not an easy process. After 1,000 and I don't know, 300 years since Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, Imam Baqir lived, majority of our Shia ahadith are from Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq, alayhim as-salam. There's a lot of detailed ahkam we have from their hadith. There are hundreds of years of Shia scholars who have commented on this and given their opinions. There are detailed, complicated subjects you have to study before you can do ijtihad. Long story short, it's not an easy process. So somebody who goes through this process and then becomes qualified to themselves have their own opinion, to extract the law from the primary sources, that is what we call a mujtahid or a faqih. Sister Hana, who is a marja' now? Go back to what you were telling me earlier, as opposed to a mujtahid, who is a marja'?
The representative that we follow.
And so, how does a mujtahid become a marja? Is it like every mujtahid is a marja or no?
Is it like the one who is above all of them? Like you follow who you believe to be the
Exactly.
most knowledgeable?
Exactly. So there could be hundreds of mujtahids. There probably is hundreds of mujtahids alive today. But nobody considers 99% of them to be a marja. Maraja are those who some people claim, some people believe that this individual is the a'lam. This individual has the highest level of knowledge from all the mujtahids. So we are more likely to follow the correct law of Islam if we follow him. In this regard, there's just a handful. At times in recent history, there's been times where we only had one marja. The whole Shia community was following one person called Sayyid Abul Hassan al Isfahani about 100 years ago. Okay, in our time, we have a few different maraja. Two of the most famous ones are Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei. There are others as well. But point is that some people claim that Ayatollah Sistani is the most a'lam, most knowledgeable, and so they do his taqleed. Other people claim Ayatollah Khamenei is the most knowledgeable, they do his taqleed. The idea is that not every mujtahid is a marja. The maraja are those who are the highest tier, the most knowledgeable of the mujtahids. Any questions? That makes sense, sisters? Please feel free to ask questions if anything is not clear. Okay. Another important discussion is that, okay, as an individual, as a Muslim, how do we know that we are doing our responsibility? Like that question I started off with about what do you do on the plane? Basically, you have one of three options. Either you are a mujtahid yourself, you've studied the ahkam, which, like I just said, is not an easy process. It's a long, difficult process. The default, so that's for some people, they can do ijtihad. That's how they figure out the law they have to follow. The easiest option for somebody who's not a mujtahid is to do taqleed. Taqleed means to follow, to emulate, to follow somebody who is qualified. This is a logical thing. This is something the ahadith, the Quran also, we could say, guide us towards, that we go to people who have knowledge. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ is a verse of Quran. Go and ask those people who are people of remembrance, people who know. One of the meanings we can take out of that is that, you go to an expert. This is the logical thing. When you guys have a sickness, you go to a doctor. When you have, I don't know, a broken car, you go to the mechanic. You go to an expert in any field, right? So that's the default. There is a third option, which would be quite tricky and hard at times, where you don't do ijtihad, you don't do taqleed, but you do ihtiyat. Ihtiyat meaning here that you have to know what are the different opinions that maraji have, and then you choose the hardest opinion. Or you try to combine all the different opinions together when possible, and you do your responsibility. Let's say I'm traveling on a trip, and some of the maraja would say I have to pray qasr. Other maraja would say I have to pray full. If I want to do ihtiyat, I have to pray both full and qasr at the same time. I mean, like one after the other. Okay, so this is an option. It's not very practical. It's something that, if somebody wants to really go out of their way, they could do that. But at times, it's going to be impossible. Okay, there are going to be times where if you're not a mujtahid, you can't do ihtiyat, you have to do taqleed. So there's really no way around this concept of taqleed for most of us, unless we are mujtahids. I already explained taqleed. Taqleed is this idea that, okay, I follow Ayatollah Sistani, so I am gonna read what or figure out what his opinion is and implement that. I am doing taqleed of him. I am a muqallid. Muqallid meaning the person doing taqleed. Okay, another really important discussion here as we're entering Islamic laws is to define the word mukallaf, taklif. Can anybody help me out here? What does this word mean? Who is who is mukallaf? What does that even mean? How about Sister Asiya Kazmi? Are you with us? Can you help us out? What does the word mukallaf mean? Alaykum salam wa
A
rahmatullah.
mukallaf is someone who reaches the certain requirements to be responsible for their own actions.
What are the basic, there's three requirements that they have to meet, then they're responsible. Do you know?
They have to be baligh,
Mhm.
they have to have a sound mind, and yeah, I don't know the third one.
Anybody want to help her out? What's the third one? Think of the like on a individual basis, not overall, but on with regards to one law. Okay, sometimes you might be baligh, you might be sane, but you don't have to follow a specific law. Why might you not have to follow a specific law? Physical ability. Thank you, Sister Fatima. Yes, so these are the three conditions that if somebody has reached the age of bulugh, okay, that is, there's details there, but default is 9 years old for a sister and 15 in the lunar calendar for a brother. And they have a sound mind, they're not insane, okay? And they have the ability to follow the law, then it's wajib on them. This aspect of ability is really important. Sister Asiya, for example, let's say somebody, is can't tolerate the heat of the summer in the month of Ramadan. It's really, really unbearable for them. In that case, they can open their fast. And with all the laws of the Sharia, this is the case. That if they reach between you and God, if you feel you are going through intolerable difficulty, this following this law is really, really unbearable for you, you're allowed to break the law. It's no longer haram for you to break that law or to not follow that law. So this idea of taklif encompasses these three things. Okay. Final couple of points. When our maraji derive the law, they tell us one of two things. Either they say that this is my fatwa, okay, that Ayatollah Sistani says that when you travel 44 kilometers on a trip, his fatwa is that you have to pray qasr prayer. Other times they say no, this is ihtiyat. Recently, apparently, Ayatollah Sistani has now said, not apparently, definitely, Ayatollah Sistani has now said that non-Ahlul Kitab, Hindus and atheists and Sikh and these other religions, they are najis according to ihtiyat. Ihtiyat wajib. What does that mean? So it's not a fatwa, it's called ihtiyat. Can anybody clarify what that means for us? How about, who have I not called on? Sister Zareen Fatima. What does ihtiyat mean in this context? Precaution, better not to do so. Anything, any other details, Sister Zareen Fatima? What do you think? Not compulsory? Okay, practically, what does that mean? So the Ayatollah Sistani has said that a Hindu is najis according to ihtiyat. When you say, Sister Zareen Fatima, when you say that's not compulsory, what do you mean? With regards to the najasat of a Hindu. Aha, Sister Hana. Thank you. You are able to do ruju' to the next most learned marja''s rule. Basically, sisters, what it means is that Ayatollah Sistani is not giving a fatwa. If he was 100% sure, if he had reached that level of certainty that he needs, maybe it's not even 100%, if he was, if he was able to categorically say this is what Islamic opinion is, he would have given a fatwa. Okay, as he has, many Maraji give lots of fatawa. Other times they say, no, I'm going to do ihtiyat, meaning that I don't want to give a fatwa. What's the practical result of that? As Sister Hana told us, we don't need to follow them. We can go check what the next most knowledgeable marja says, and if they have a fatwa that's easier, we can follow them. So going back to the najasat issue, there is another marja today called Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi. He says that if you're living in a non-Muslim country, you can treat everybody as if they are tahir. You can treat a Hindu as if they are not najis. So if somebody follows Ayatollah Sistani and they really want to, eat food that a Hindu has touched with their hands, they could, in theory, say, okay, Ayatollah Sistani has ihtiyat, I'm not going to follow him. He's said ihtiyat, that means that I can go refer to the next most knowledgeable, or if the next most knowledgeable person, or if there's like a tier of most knowledgeable maraji and one of them is Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, I could go follow what he says. And technically then the food that a Hindu has touched would be okay for me to eat. Okay, so this is the idea of ihtiyat. It's not, you shouldn't, we shouldn't be quick to say, oh, this is just like shopping around for an easy fatwa. It's not really shopping around for an easy fatwa. It's still respecting the system of the hawza, the system of marja'iyya, where I'm not just going to whoever I want to. I'm following a process that Ayatollah Sistani has allowed me that over here I can go follow another marja'. And if there is another marja that has this opinion, okay, he's a qualified expert. Why can't I follow his opinion? I can. So, this is the idea of fatwa versus ihtiyat. The last of the terms that I have here is this idea of risala amaliya or tawdih al-masail. This is this idea that, in recent decades, not even that long, it started maybe with Ayatollah Burujardi, who lived like 60 years ago. He passed away maybe. There is this idea that a marja has a book, the office of a marja, the students of the marja, they develop a book that is supposed to be available for everybody to read, where the fatwas of that marja are clarified. As I told you guys in the beginning, even these books sometimes are quite hard to read. That's why we're following this book called Dars Nama Fiqh, because that's a simplified book. But anyways, the idea is that every marja has a book called Tawdih al-Masail or Risala Amaliya. In English, Ayatollah Sistani's is called Islamic Laws. Every marja's office will somehow publish such a book. Okay, so that's the source, that's the authoritative, definite source that you can go to find the opinion of your marja. Nowadays, mashallah, we have websites, we have other things, maybe more modern ways as well to figure things out. You can email the office of the marja as well, or you can reach out to a scholar who might know these things. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I want to pause here. If anybody has any questions, any comments, sisters, also please do give me feedback. This is what I have. You can go to the website and see the course outline. I'm planning to follow this book. I'm guessing it's gonna be easy for a lot of you guys, but inshallah it will be beneficial to go through it. This was the plan of this class. And so, if there is a serious reservations that you sisters have, then do share them with me and we'll see if we can accommodate. But inshallah, the plan is to go next week. We'll talk a little bit more about taqleed. Maybe we'll wrap that up before the end of next class. We'll enter tahara and wudu and ghusl and najasat and mutahhirat and these kind of things. Okay, so I did send an email. If anybody didn't get the email, I'll try to check why it was not sent to you. You can always send me an email if you didn't receive it, and I'll make sure I send it to you. This is my email address. I had sent an email about an hour ago with the notes for this first session. It was basically what we went through in the slides. Okay, there wasn't much more. I'm going to pause here. Anybody have any questions, any comments? Hmm. I could tell you guys some stories or something, but I think we've reached pretty much the end of the class. If there's no comments or questions, I think we can leave it at that. Do give me feedback, sisters. I am interested to know how the class went, if this is the expectation that you guys had or not, inshallah. But anyways, we can end with this. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. No problem, sisters. My pleasure, inshallah. I will see you next week. And next week, please do try to keep your cameras on, sisters. Okay? It would be much better. We can make it more of a real class, inshallah. Take care of yourselves, and until next week, Khudafiz.